Hello, Laura.
Hi, Stephanie. How have you
And
been?
oh, geez. January has been like a decade long, and I'm sure a lot of us are feeling that. And there's just so much to catch up on, and I can't wait to dive into it with you.
Yeah, January has felt like 6 months long.
Mhm.
So we'll try to keep the January recap as brief as we can so that we can get into February. But let's start on January 1st, which is the Gregorian New Year. The moon was conjunct Pluto, and Mars was applying to an opposition to Pluto. And on that day, there was a New Orleans terrorist attack, a Las Vegas Cybertruck explosion, and some internet sleuths found out that both men were veterans who served in the US Army at the same time and at the same base, and also served in Afghanistan. So, yeah, the first of the year was kind of violent, like most Mars opposite Pluto transits entail.
Yes, yes.
And then on January 7th, the North Node and the South Node were at 0 degrees of the cardinal signs. And that is when the Palisades and the Eaton fires started to, I guess, erupt in Los Angeles. And it's interesting because I looked up the Los Angeles natal chart, and there's different natal charts for Los Angeles, but when Los Angeles was formally founded and named, it was on September 4th, 1781. So Virgo sun, but has an Aries moon and also Pluto at 4 degrees of Aquarius. So Los Angeles essentially is going through its Pluto return, which I thought was interesting because also having an Aries moon and the fires,
Hmm.
kind of literal. And then Mars retrograde in Cancer, like people losing their homes as indicative of Cancer.
Yeah, related to the home. And Mars re-entered Cancer on January 6th.
That's right.
Mhm.
And because because Mars was applying to an opposition to Pluto, or they did on January 3rd. So this was like after the exact opposition. There was a lot of exposure of the wealth gap, right? You saw Kim Kardashian being able to afford private fire brigades as well as other billionaires and millionaires. And it exposed the Resnick's wonderful company and hoarding water in LA. They're also Zionists. It
They
just like,
have
yeah,
We should just name, don't they own like 60 something percent of all of California's water and they
yes,
sell it back to the state?
yes,
That should be so freaking illegal. That's insane.
yes.
Okay,
So
so just for anyone
basic,
who doesn't know,
yes,
Google them, the Resnicks.
the Resnicks, and their company is called the Wonderful Company. And I think they have pistachios and other nuts that require a lot of water. So they hoard all the water in LA, which is also part of the reason why there's so many droughts. But it's a long history also of colonization and how the Spaniards replanted their own plants and took out the indigenous plants that are more fireproof than the invasive species. It's like a whole layered thing.
Right, like eucalyptus is incredibly flammable, which is not
Yes.
native to California, but it's all over California. And there's oils on the leaves, so
Mm-hmm.
once they catch fire, it spreads like insane.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. And then something that I didn't know that I found out was that incarcerated prisoners are firefighters who earn $5 a day because LA also defunded the fire department and gave that money to the LAPD because I don't know why. And that was something I didn't know previously. And so this fire really did expose a lot of things that I didn't even know about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the other neighborhoods, I don't want to forget to mention them, was Altadena, which is a predominantly Black neighborhood that was also burned in these fires. And Octavia E. Butler is from Altadena, and she wrote in her book, Parable of the Sower, that there would be massive wildfires February 2025. So she was not only prophetic, but she studied the ecology of the area. And you could call her a seer, you could call her a psychic, but I mean, she also studied the ecology of the area and just said, like, 30 years from now, because she wrote that book in 1993, that wildfires would be prevalent in this area.
Yeah, and there was a lot of coverage, and there still is a lot of coverage of the Palisades fire, and you were seeing a lot of headlines like, this celebrity lost their home, this celebrity
Mm-hmm.
lost their home. And it's like, okay, this is generational wealth, generation and generation of Black families that have worked so hard for these homes for decades, and there wasn't an equal amount of coverage. And the Eaton fire was like 14,000 acres. It's huge as
Mm-hmm.
well. I mean, the Palisades is 23,000 ish, I think, but you know, huge.
Yes. That is a very Pluto and Aquarius thing too, like generational wealth
Hmm.
in like for a community that wasn't able to cultivate generational wealth until in modern times when they were able to buy the land there. Another thing that happened was Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, announced that he will be stepping down. And I thought this was also interesting because he has an Aries moon. So,
Mm.
and with that 0 degrees of the north and south node of the cardinal signs, there was a lot of like world news happening on that day. The critical degree of zero.
And it was right at the same time that Mars re-entered Cancer. So we're seeing
Mhm.
this like rush of Mars retrograde stories that have to do with Mars in Cancer again, because we've been living through Mars retrograde in Leo, and then we have this big dramatic shift. Mars struggles even more when it's in Cancer. And so we're
Mhm.
seeing these like very intense stories come into focus.
Yeah. So on January 10th, Pluto in Aquarius, um, Mars is opposing Pluto, and there's also a full moon. Um, that day was when TikTok users kind of left in mass to Redbook in an act of protest off of TikTok. Did you happen to download Redbook?
I did, yes.
Red Book is based on Mao Zedong's Red Book because he was the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party. And it was interesting to be on that app and see how average US Americans were finding out that the propaganda that the US government spread about Chinese people were wrong, but the propaganda that the Chinese government told them about us was true.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
I was like, oh, like they were the Chinese users on that app were really concerned for us. They were like, wait, you have to pay how much for college?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know. Very that was a very illuminating moment, I think. And I
Mm-hmm.
hope that it helped radicalize a lot of Americans and to recognize the power of propaganda that exists in this country.
Yes. On January 15th, the sun in Capricorn opposes Mars retrograde in Cancer at 26 degrees. And that was about like the midpoint in the Mars retrograde transit. South Korean President Yoon was arrested. So when he declared martial law was right before Mars station to go to retrograde. It was like December 6th, right? Well,
Yep.
this happened. He declared martial law December 4th, and then Mars went retrograde December 6th. So this is kind of like the halfway point of that Mars retrograde story. And then Israel and Hamas announced that there would be a ceasefire deal. I mean, but at that point, Netanyahu refused to ratify. And I do find this interesting because Israel's midheaven is at 25 degrees of Cancer. So Mars was going over the midheaven.
Exactly.
And on January 20th, the day before the Sun and Pluto conjunction in Aquarius, there was an inauguration of Donald J. Trump as
Oh,
president, the second time. And Stephanie, you pointed this out in one of our monthly horoscopes. I don't remember when, that it was during Hitler's rise to power when he was elected chancellor on January 30th, 1933, that there was also a Mars retrograde.
going through his 12th house.
Yes.
And that is what was taking place on the day of the inauguration for Trump, too. He's having Mars
Mm-hmm.
retrograde through his 12th house. And I believe they both were having personal activations from it. Like Trump has a bunch of planets in his 12th house in Cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Hitler does as well in Virgo.
Yes. So Hitler, it's so weird saying his name. Hitler is a Libra rising. So his Virgo is the 12th house. And that year, there was a Mars retrograde in Virgo. And Trump is a Leo rising. So his 12th house is Cancer. And at the time of his inauguration, Mars in Cancer was in his 12th house. Another eerie thing in both charts is that both inaugurations or both like election, like coming into power, happened in an Aquarius season, with a Capricorn midheaven, a Taurus rising, and a cardinal moon.
Ooh.
So in Hitler's inauguration, it was a Aries moon, and in Trump's, it was a Libra moon.
Hmm.
And in Hitler's chart, there was a Sun Saturn conjunction in Aquarius. In Trump's inauguration, it was a Sun Pluto in Aquarius.
Hmm.
In Trump's inauguration, Mercury was in Capricorn, and in Hitler's, Mercury was in Aquarius. Both are Saturn ruled Mercuries. So it gives this like very like controlled dictatory feel.
Well, and like structure and
Mm-hmm.
systems and
Mm-hmm.
how you can use them to oppress.
Yes. And so what day is today? It's not even been 2 weeks. It's been like less than 2 weeks since Trump came into power. He's already signed like how many things into action already. And that was very much the vibe when Hitler came into power. He like it was 60 days when his dictatorship started to really like be noticed.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not saying this to fearmonger because, you know, we want to just be realistic with you and giving like the reality of the situation, but it's also important to recognize the signs that happen. That's why we use astrology so that we can, at this moment, speak up and stand up for our collective liberation because a lot of people at that time just watched, like Switzerland, just, you know, neutral. We're going to play
Mm-hmm.
both sides, and we cannot do that this time.
No, no. Yeah, astrology, it's so important to use the cycles and patterns and to recognize them. So it's not going to show up in the exact same way. And we still do have free will and we can co create, visualize, and create the world and the change we want to see in the world. But it's important to pay attention to these similarities. And of course, all of the astrological notes between the two charts, it doesn't necessarily mean those specifically are responsible for fascism, for a dictatorship. We have been living in fascism with like a veneer on top of
Yeah.
it, right? And I think for a lot of people, I think for a lot of white people, a lot of white liberals who have not listened to the global majority, who has been screaming this for decades, um, a lot of white people are quote unquote shocked, like, oh my gosh, we're like living in fascist times. And it's like, no, this
Mhm.
has been the reality for so many people who are constantly oppressed by the systems and structures that are in place.
Yes. I mean, this country was founded on genocide. So you
Right.
can't be surprised that we fund genocides in foreign lands. And then, you know, I feel like that's why Martin Luther King Jr. said the year before he passed away, or he was murdered actually, that like the fact that we are sending troops to the Vietnam War, it's like desensitizing our hearts as Americans, because how can you fight for freedom when you are sending people to murder other people? So it's like, we have to get out of our moral apathy, as James Baldwin said. So yeah, I guess the last thing I have marked here is Mars retrograde in Cancer, like the ongoing story about displacement, right? Displacement from home. On January 27th, Palestinians returned to the north of Gaza. And in the 1988 chart of Palestine, Palestine is going through a nodal return. It's a Virgo rising with the seventh house being Pisces, and their north node is in Pisces and south node in Virgo. So we shall see what that entails for their nodal return.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an important note.
So,
Alrighty.
shall we go to February?
Let's get into it.
Okay. So, February 1st, Venus in Pisces will conjunct Neptune in Pisces at 27 degrees, which is Venus's exaltation degree. The moon will also be in Pisces.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Cry. Make sure you have some tissues
Mhm.
nearby. That is like, it's either a super sweet, healing, compassionate interaction in your relationships, or it is like Captain Delulu,
Mhm.
missing red flags. Um,
Yes.
but because Venus is at its exaltation degree, maybe that lends a little extra help and it's like more of a positive vibe. But Venus and Neptune are both two planets that have to do with romance and creativity. And uh, Venus is your desires and your values, and Neptune is a planet of compassion and spirituality. So, this is also a really beautiful time to act in alignment with your values. I mean, it always is, but this would be an even more important time to donate to mutual aid, to give back, to find ways in which you can volunteer or build new
Mhm.
relationships in your community.
Mhm. I think we all need a little Delulu right now,
We
because it's
do.
looking grim. The past couple months have been grim. So I feel like this is a great day to like immerse yourself in art and music. And um yeah, I mean, I guess the only caveat would be rose colored glasses, right? But hey, it's I mean, maybe
If you
we
go
all
on,
need that.
we all need that. But like, if you go on a first date, don't like plan your wedding. That's what we
Yeah.
mean, But have fun.
Yes. I think it's one of the nicest days of February.
That's really cute. And with the moon there, we're really gonna feel that energy.
Oh, yeah. It's going to feel nice. On February 3rd, Mercury in Aquarius will trine Jupiter in Gemini at 11 degrees. And this will bring you back to January 30th, when the sun met with Jupiter.
So this is great because Mercury and Jupiter both have to do with our mind and our beliefs. And this is a great day to gain attention for important causes, news, organizations, to share mutual aid in your stories, to send out an important newsletter, or if you want to apply for a job, or if you want to tell someone you love them. There's just like a little bit more luck in the air. People are
Mhm.
more receptive and open minded. It's a great day. This is supportive energy for maybe broadening someone's understanding and perspective and helping to change their mind in some way. So you can really use your wisdom and knowledge to create more growth and expansion and support in the world.
Mhm. Yeah. I was going to say this is a good day to go to a community event, meet new people. I know a lot of people don't like that. Network. I know a lot of people don't like that word either, but it's just a good day to share ideas with people. And I feel like the wackier, the better.
Mhm.
Because Aquarians are innovative, they're the eccentric scientists, and yeah, it's a lot of information sharing.
And you can come up with solutions to your problems because we
Mm-hmm.
have these two meeting in air signs. So like your mind is moving at kind of like a all-time high. So
Mm-hmm.
follow your ideas, follow your intuition and your impulses. They are not going to lead you astray.
Mm-hmm. Yes. February 3rd, Venus enters Aries. Aries, I mean, not Aries, Venus will go retrograde on March 1st until April 14th. I caramba is what Stephanie wrote.
Yes. Yes, that's my personal opinion. Um, so you're going to want to start paying attention to clues that are coming through because your Venus retrograde story is really emerging. You know, pretty much the first half of this year, we've been dealing with chaotic retrogrades. So later on this month, we're going to talk about Mars retrograde will finally end. Hallelujah. But then Venus, which is the other planet that's associated with relationships, desires, creativity, your values, goes retrograde. I think the fact that I think something that's super interesting about this Venus retrograde in particular is that it starts out in Aries, which
Mm-hmm.
is where Venus is in detriment, which means it struggles a bit for our astro newbies out there. But then it backtracks into Pisces, and that's where Venus is exalted, where Venus is lifted up and like really thrives. So there's this interesting dichotomy also in some way. When I think of Aries, Aries is a martial sign. So Venus is going to be ruled by that Mars that just ended its retrograde. And so it almost kind of feels like we're still continuing some themes of that Mars retrograde in some way. Um, it can definitely kick up more conflict on the world stage and in our personal relationships.
Mm-hmm. Venus went retrograde in Aries in 2017, 2009, 2001, and then you keep going back in 8-year increments. So you can also try to remember what happened between March and April of those years. It can give you clues as to what this retrograde might be about.
Mm.
In 2017, that's when after I quit my job, I went on I bought a one-way ticket to Asia and just like try to figure out my life. So who knows what this one will entail.
Mm.
Do you remember what you were doing?
I was trying to break up with the boyfriend I was living with at the time. And I was
Oh,
like literally talking to him about it. Like I was like, I think we should break up. But then we'd be like, yeah, yeah, we should. And then we like didn't. It like was prolonged, which totally makes sense,
mhm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it does depend on your Aries house. So, yeah,
And the houses that Venus rules in your birth chart. Pay attention to that as
right.
well.
Right. And on February 4th, Jupiter goes direct in Gemini.
Thank goodness. I feel like Jupiter retrograde has just been wrecking havoc. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Jupiter is the greater benefic in astrology. It's supposed to bring us some luck, expansion, support, but it's in detriment in Gemini. And then on top of it, it's retrograde. And so I have just felt like there's been no wind in my sails. And part of that is genocide, late stage capitalism,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
imperialism, all the things. But just in a personal, in your personal lives, if you feel like you've been unmotivated or if you feel like the glass is half empty, maybe this is a turning point for you. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying like all of your problems are solved and all the world's problems are solved, but there could be a glimmer of hope on this day.
Yeah.
And it'll bring you back to October 9th, which is the day the retrograde began. So, whatever was your main focus or storyline around that time, there is some sort of thread
Mm-hmm.
directly related to February 4th.
Jupiter and Gemini is also information overload and like an overload on news. Do you know that guy on TikTok who's like breaking news, breaking news, breaking news, like every 5 seconds?
Uh-uh.
Just like, geez, everyone's gonna crash out soon.
Yeah.
But that's like what Jupiter in Gemini feels like. It's like constantly like, chaotic about everything that's like coming up in the news cycle. So
Which
hopefully,
is
yeah.
which is really a vibe, and that just made me think of Trump's 7,000 executive orders. Um,
Yes.
I saw a post from Witches of Hope,
Mm-hmm.
and she posted saying how like this is a distraction, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
which is very Jupiter and Gemini, is like everything that he's like signing into is meant to distract us and make us feel overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
And not all of it is going to come into fruition right away or next month or within the next couple of months. So that's just
Yeah.
where my brain went thinking of what you said with like information overload. And like, I just want to remind others who aren't aware of that do your best to not feel overwhelmed, because that is exactly what him and his administration are trying to do to make us feel hopeless.
Because he's a Gemini and
Yes.
he has a Sag moon. So he is like the master of chaos. And what you're referring to is like a marketing tactic of chaos theory where you just like throw 100 pieces of information at somebody so that they feel dysregulated. And so when you're dysregulated, then you're more afraid and easier to control. So he is a mastermind in that way where he is like chief chaotic officer.
Love. Love that title for him. Yes. Nailed it.
Oh gosh. And the Jupiter will go direct at 11 degrees. So just keep that pinned in your mind.
Mhm.
On February 7th, Venus and Aries will sextile Pluto in Aquarius at 2 degrees.
Sweet. Love
Wow.
this. Dive deep. Have some
Very
hot sex.
sexy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very sexy. Fatal attraction vibes.
Yeah. But in like you kind of want it that,
Yes, exactly. February 9th, Sun in Aquarius conjunct Mercury in Aquarius at 21 degrees.
So this is kind of nice because it is, I believe, the superior conjunction, right? Because Mercury is not retrograde.
Mm-hmm.
So we're having this moment of clarity and we're not dealing with a retrograde. So this is like a moment of illumination, a great idea, a solution to a problem, a meaningful conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's coming through in the sign of Aquarius, which is innovative, helps you take
Mm-hmm.
risks. So I think really a great day to share your thoughts, feelings, and ideas with other people. And again, to gain attention for important news stories, causes, you can
Yeah.
really gain some traction with this.
Yeah. Once the TikTok ban was like, it was banned for like a hot minute, a lot of people were asking, when is the next social media app going to be invented? Well, I'm calling all of you inventors here. Use this energy to like start thinking and start, collaborating with people. Like there are definitely people out there who have like UX design experience and people who have like investors that they know. I think we need to like collaborate more so that we can actually build these platforms that are made for the people.
Yep. Yep.
So use these transits. On the same day, Mars in Cancer will trine Saturn in Pisces at 18 degrees. This is really lovely. Mars is still retrograde.
Yes. And I was just checking the dates. It's going to bring us back to September 30th. And then we have one more pass of this on April 4th. So
Mhm.
that's like the final story. This is like a three-part saga. But yeah, think back to September 30th, what was going on for you. And this is, similar topics and themes are coming up. Mars and Saturn are meeting in a constructive way, which is great.
Mhm.
They're the two of the more challenging planets in astrology, but it can help you have the determination to stick with a commitment, to follow
Mhm.
through on some of your long-term goals, to set healthy emotional boundaries.
Yeah, I like that. I was trying to remember what happened in September.
I can't.
I
I just tried to. I'm like, I have no clue what was
don't
happening there.
remember. But yeah, I like Mars trine Saturn days specifically because I get a lot of stuff done.
Mm,
I know they're water signs, but still, like the energy of Mars, like the planet of action, and with Saturn's discipline, I do like these trines.
yes. And if you have to focus on something tedious, this also gives you the ability to focus pretty well.
Yes. On February 10th, Mercury in Aquarius will square Uranus and Taurus at 23 degrees.
So from February 10th through February 12th, I feel like it's just chaos because it's a constant Uranus activation.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think so on January 30th, Uranus ends its retrograde. So whatever is kind of happening between February 10th through the 12th is going to re-highlight some stories from January 30th when the retrograde ended. But in general, when Mercury is square Uranus, we are running into odd or random people. We are hearing
Mm-hmm.
from people that we haven't heard from in a while, or we receive surprising opportunities, or conversations feel abrupt. Um, Uranus is unpredictable. So it can be just a little hard to say how this will manifest, and it will depend on the other planets in your chart for sure.
Yeah. Um, February 11th, Sun in Aquarius will square Uranus and Taurus at 23 degrees. So this is like the day after Mercury squares Uranus.
So there's something important is being illuminated based on the shocking conversation you had the day before, and it surprises you just as much. So
I
buckle up.
Yeah, I am just curious as to how this is going to manifest in Donald Trump's chart because, he has, right?
Wait,
Because,
I have something.
okay, tell
No,
us.
but I got to save it for the full moon the next day. But I have
Okay,
something about Elon and Donald Trump for the full moon.
okay. Well, what I was going to say, so like back in July 15th of last year the Mars, when we had the Mars Uranus conjunction in Taurus, right? it was conjunct his midheaven, squaring his Mars and his ascendant. So I'm just wondering, like, because all of this Aquarius stuff is happening in his seventh house of open enemies, but also one-on-one partnerships, and it's going to be pretty much conjunct his midheaven again. I'm like, is this another continuation of what happened in July? Also, there was an assassination attempt, right?
Yes.
Okay, so do you want
I
the February 12th full moon in Leo?
Yes. Yes. Okay. So I'm just like, can't wait. So February 12th, we have the full moon in Leo at 24 degrees, and those squares to Uranus are baked into it.
Mhm.
Now, okay, we'll describe the full moon in Leo afterwards, but I just have to get this off my chest. Okay.
You
So
have to.
Elon has, I think, a 20-degree Mars in Aquarius. And Trump, I believe, has like a 24-degree Mars in Leo. So their Marses, the planet of war and fighting, are opposite one another. And
Mhm.
this full moon is going to activate their Mars opposition, and it's going to be square Uranus. I think they're going to get in a big fight.
Ooh, the girlies are fighting.
The girlies are fighting. And that's just what I think because
Yeah.
that the fact that they have this Mars opposition in at some point that is going to get activated. It's getting activated under this full moon. And
Mhm.
with Uranus being so unpredictable, I feel like it could play out again in the public eye. Like you noted, this is on Trump's midheaven.
Mhm.
Um, they also have 12th house synastry. Both of them have um, Sun Venus conjunctions with one another in the 12th house. And so there is an element of like secret enemies.
Secret. Yeah.
At the same time, it's like instant like rapport, but but really like the core underlying energy of it is a 12th house nature, which is like a secret
Mhm.
enemy, which like duh, no surprise. Like they are both just craving power and they have ego
Mhm.
issues and they're maniacs. So like duh. But um I think we really need to pay attention to them because they're going to be in the news, I think, together. And then I also think um some secrets. I was looking at Elon's chart. I think some of his like ex lovers and exes are going to start to reveal their experiences and truths with him.
Oh my goodness. Amber Heard is one of them. Don't they,
Hmm.
doesn't he have like 1,000 children?
He's got like 1,000 children. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
What is I didn't look at Mark Zuckerberg's his chart, but Jeff Bezos has a Saturn in Aquarius. I think he also has a Venus in Aquarius. So it's interesting how they all have like these Aquarius like placements, and the fact that like that inauguration chart had the Sun Pluto conjunction, and basically they were all there for his inauguration. Sun represents the leader, the president, the CEO. Pluto is the planet of power, right? Like the plutocracy. And I do feel like when you have those billionaires all together and they're all just like narcissists and like insecure man children, of course they're going to fight. I feel like I'm surprised that they haven't fought already.
I'm sure they have behind
you
closed
know
doors. Yeah. Yeah. But this full moon is going to really activate some of those storylines. So stay tuned. But in your personal lives, it will also be shocking and surprising, but that could be exciting.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, it's in the third decan of Leo, which is the Seven of Wands, which is this energy of like,
Which is Mars and Leo. It's a Mars ruled deacon.
mm-hmm, yeah, yeah. And we have Mars retrograde still. So, you know, um, but the Seven of Wands is like kind of like fighting for and standing up for yourself, defending yourself, trying to prove your worth. Like, I deserve to be here, keeping your footing, some sort of battle too. The person in the card is wearing like two different shoes. And so it's like they got caught off guard and they're like, ah, I've got these sticks. I need to fight.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like the Cowardly Lion in The Wizard of Oz, how he like goes on this journey to find his heart, but it's like you had the heart the whole time. And I think which is like the opposite of Aquarius, right? Which is like detached and emotionally unavailable. I
hmm.
have an Aquarius moon, so I can say that. And I think it is important for all of us to remember that Aquarius, like when we are in Aquarius season and Pluto in Aquarius, to remember like the Leo duality of it. It's like to not forget that we have human hearts and to not become these like robotic um, people, basically.
Yes. Yes. I love that. If you show up authentically under this full moon, you can do no
Mhm.
wrong. How about
Yes.
that? Like, show
I
up
love.
as your full, authentic
Mhm.
self and embrace your weirdo because both
Mhm.
Aquarius and Leo are comfortable with their inner weirdos.
Yes. They are both about being individuals and authentic,
Hmm.
right? They just express it in different ways.
Hmm.
And I do find it interesting because, like, all of the stuff that I'm seeing online is like down with the bully, like the whole Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni thing and like the death of celebrity culture. It is kind of like power to the people. It's like you cannot be and Selena Gomez like showing up crying. It's like people see through that bullshit. You
Yep.
cannot like use your money and like fame anymore. Just like it's not going to fool anybody anymore, basically.
I know. I saw a video today of like AOC sobbing and like hugging
Yes.
hugging people who are getting deported. And it was like, this has been going on the whole time. Like you can't just like
Yo,
care about it now because Trump's back in power. Like it was
I
happening
know.
just as crazy amounts right before he took power and way before that. But I digress. So, yes,
Literally.
we're seeing through the rich and powerful's bullshit,
Hmm.
and it is a time to show up authentically, and it is a time to focus on authentic connections and building and nurturing community around you in your environment.
Hmm. Yes, I love that. February 14th, Mercury will enter Pisces and Mercury will go retrograde on March 14th.
Ew. Yeah, so just start to pay attention because your retrograde stories are going to come through. You're our resident Mercury in Pisces. So please,
Yes.
tell us.
Mercury in Pisces is not only in its detriment, but it is also in its fall.
But it is so poetic. It
Very
really is.
poetic. Yes, I speak in metaphor and I speak in symbolism. Um, and I do like, I don't, again, I don't think detriment or fallen planets are weaker or worse. They just operate in a different way. And I think it really does help us stretch beyond the binary, right? Because all of the retrogrades so far have been in fallen and debilitated and detriment planets. If you think about Jupiter in Gemini, Mars in Cancer, Venus in Aries, and now Mercury in Pisces, it's like some part of us is like trying to be multidimensional beings. So,
Hmm.
like when Mercury is in Virgo and Gemini, Mercury likes to look at the small print, the detail, gather data, gather news. But Mercury in Pisces is like, I just want to believe in like mermaids and I don't need the
Yeah.
evidence.
Yes, but the intuition is real also.
Yeah.
So listen to your gut instincts, and your intuitive mind and your dream world is going to heighten. Laura could tell you she has wild dreams.
Wild dreams.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have like an all access pass to other dimensions when Mercury's in
Mhm.
Pisces. So enjoy it.
Yeah. And I do think it's interesting that both Venus and Mercury are kind of traveling together between Aries and Pisces, the two personal
Yes.
planets. So,
These retrogrades they're mirroring each other. So it's
mhm.
definitely gonna kind of add an extra layer and emphasis. Yeah, our March recap is gonna be wild.
Yeah. Oy. So this is kind of the calm before the storm.
Hmm.
On February 18th, the sun enters Pisces, Pisces season. It's a Jupiter ruled season. It's a great season to dream, to imagine.
It's the final zodiac sign too. And so I think with that comes some ends of cycles. Endings are unavoidable. It's a time for emotional processing. And because it's the final zodiac sign, it encompasses the journey of the entire
Mhm.
zodiac wheel. And Pisces reminds us of it's so spiritual. It reminds us of our interconnectedness.
Yes.
And so this is an extra important time to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And yeah, just remember that the core tenet of spirituality really is that a lot of people are like, it's universal love. Okay, that's fine. If it is universal love, we all, as humans, as plants, as animals, experience that together.
Mhm.
And all of our love, is one. We are one. We are interconnected. What happens to you affects me, what affects them, affects her. It's all interconnected.
Yeah. It's like the butterfly effect. When the butterfly flutters its wings, it's felt in like, it can be felt thousands of miles away. I really believe that.
Hmm.
Um, February 20th, Mercury in Pisces will square Jupiter and Gemini at 11 degrees. So Jupiter is just kind of hanging out at 11 degrees for like a month.
Yeah. Because it's stationary, right? Yeah. So if
Yeah.
you have any planets around 11 degrees of the mutable signs, you'll feel that.
Mhm.
I hope that this is better than when Venus was there, because
Mhm.
that was not fun. That was in January. But we were still feeling the effects of that Jupiter Saturn square, and hopefully they're kind of like further away. So I do think this energy is a little
Chaotic.
chaotic.
Yeah. I was gonna say, remember December?
It's the same kind of deal. Yeah.
December when it was Mercury and Sag and it was retrograde, and then there was Jupiter and Saturn squares. It was like, what is going on?
We have mutual reception, which is nice, but squares add inherent tension.
Yeah.
And for anyone who is wondering, mutual reception just means that Mercury loves to be in Gemini. Right now,
Mhm.
Jupiter is in Gemini. Jupiter loves to be in Pisces. And right now, Mercury is in Pisces. So they receive each other. They see and understand one another. They can help each other out a little bit. Um, but this just looks like a big fat disagreement regarding beliefs
Mhm.
and worldviews, really. I think there could be a lot of,
Misunderstanding. Yeah.
yeah, misunderstandings, conflicts for sure.
Yeah. It's like when you're talking to somebody that inherently has a different moral compass than you and you're trying to explain to them why something is wrong, it's like you cannot like see eye to eye on something at all.
Yes. And I also think um, this is like a marker of overdoing it in any way, shape, or form, whether it's like drinking too much or eating too much where you feel nauseous or walking too many miles and your legs hurt or reading too much and your eyes hurt, whatever. Like it's a marker of just overdoing it. So moderation may be key.
Yes. Just expect some chaotic messages. February 23rd, Mercury in Pisces will trine Mars in Cancer at 17 degrees.
This should help some of the chaos settle that took
Mhm.
place during that square a couple days before. And this also helps you stand up for what you believe in and to take action intuitively as well.
Mhm.
Maybe discuss boundaries.
Mhm.
It's motivating energy too. I think anytime Mercury and Mars are together, it's like, okay, this is my plan. This is my next step. Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Mars in Cancer to me is like protection. Mercury in Pisces is like intuition. So it's like, I don't know, just like expressing some feelings here. I feel like our collective needs more intuitive energy, protecting the most vulnerable, for example. Right now, it's getting to like, what did Mark Zuckerberg say? Masculine, we need more masculine energy. I was like, no, we
Mhm.
don't. Like, we need more intuition and we need more trusting our gut because cancer rules the stomach in medical astrology. So this is a great trying to like practice those things.
Yes. And I really like that it's happening on the same day that Mars retrograde ends.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this, not only are you having a turn of direction, a twist of fate, making some sort of important decision or setting a boundary or experiencing just some sort of turn of event on this day, but you're also able to process that and to come up with a plan that's action oriented because of that trine between Mercury and Mars.
Yeah. So on February 23rd, Mars goes direct in Cancer at 17 degrees. Are we going to have a party, everyone?
Oh my
Yes.
gosh, yes.
It's been so long. And you know, when Mars goes retrograde, it's even more feisty because it's so close to Earth. This should bring you back to December 6th when Mars went retrograde, and then October 4th when Mars was last at this very degree. It's been a
Yeah.
long journey, everyone.
It has been so long. And Mars first entered Cancer September 7th.
Mhm.
So if you do feel like it's been a million years, it really has. It's been since September that you have been building up these storylines.
Yes.
And yeah, my Mars and Cancer story, part of it has been my house trying to kill me and in various ways. And Laura's laughing because she knows it's true. That's literally not me being a dramatic Leo.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, almost died from carbon monoxide poisoning. I've
Mhm.
been getting eaten alive from various infestations of mites and bed bugs. We found out we have rats. So yeah, I'm like covered in scars head to toe, and it's been like brutal. And the retrograde has been in my first house of Leo, and then
Mhm.
12th house of hidden enemies, which is like
Mhm.
mites are like so freaking tiny. I
And
anyway,
Mars is the ruler of your fourth house, which
Mars
is,
is the yeah.
yeah. So like when you think about that, like what what is the lesson? Like if Mars retrograde is an initiation towards like taking back courage and like, um protecting yourself and stuff like that, like what lessons have you learned from this?
I think there were a lot of things with the house that we kind of just like let slide. Like we were like, "Oh, it's not that bad," or like we would hear like a scurrying in the attic, and we're like, "It can't." Oh, I'm a lifelong vegetarian, and I used to own mice, so I would like hear a scurrying, and I'm like, "Just let him live there. It's cold." Like I don't want him to go outside. It's chilly. And Joey's like, we should probably get rid of that rat. And I was like, no, no, it's fine. And then like, okay, now I'm getting eaten alive by the mites that live on him? So I
Yes.
think part of my realization for just the house is like, don't let things slide.
Mhm.
And then for me, like protective work, I had totally let that slide just like spiritually. It was not, I didn't have any sort of regular upkeep or practice. And this retrograde has given me one, which I'm very, very grateful for. And reminded me like, especially if you're doing intuitive work, you need to have protection in place. Luckily I haven't had my books open, so it's not like I've been working with a ton of people and exposed to their energies and stuff, but like we're all exposed to mal de ojo and, all kinds of things. So it's just that's been part of my lesson, I'd say.
Mhm. Yes. What is that movie with the that is it a Disney movie where she like talks to the home? Encanto? Is it?
Yes. I love that movie so much. I watched it back to back and twice in one day.
Mhm. I don't know
Yes.
why. I feel like Bruno is like your story of the rats where he's like hiding in the walls.
Yes. Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
man. Well, yes,
What
February
about you?
23rd. Oh
I
my
know.
gosh. Yeah, so Leo is my ninth house and Cancer is my eighth house. And so it has been dealing like when Mars was in Leo in my ninth and it was opposing my moon, I was getting so triggered by influencers and other astrologers that weren't speaking up about Palestine. We talked about this.
Hmm.
And just my overall resentment towards how they're just still able to be silent and still get these jobs and still just show up online as if nothing happened. And because Leo is my ninth, Aquarius is my third. So that's like my social media, communication houses. But ultimately, like I had to let it go because it was eating me alive, literally. And then Mars and Cancer in my eighth house, and Capricorn is my second house, is my financial sector. And just some of the ways in which I think, again, like scarcity mentality was coming up again. Mars rules my 12th and my fifth houses. And because, Mars and Cancer in the eighth is not cute for racking in, like raking in the abundance, like receiving
Hmm.
abundance. Because it has so much to do with also like, because Mars has to grapple with the phases of the moon. It changes signs in the moon every 2 days. So it was like, the ups and downs of your emotional body when it comes to money. And so it wasn't easy. I was born with a Mars retrograde in the sign of Libra. So I do have a pretty funky Mars already. So it was also squaring my natal Mars.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Oh my
It
gosh.
was squaring my natal
Laura.
Mars, my natal Saturn, and my natal Pluto. Bum, bum,
Oh,
bum.
oh my gosh. Oh,
a lot to do with like how I show up and my scarcity mentality, and but we're getting through it. We're getting through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
As someone who has just had Saturn in their eighth house for almost 2.5 years, I'm there with you.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
not cute.
It's not cute to
You
have a
want
malefic in the eighth.
No. And I cannot wait for Jupiter to get in there because Jupiter is going to like bless the Cancer house. So,
Yes.
yes, all of
Yes.
you just wait till June.
Yes. Yes. And February 23rd, turning point. We'll have the
Mhm.
post retrograde shadow to contend with still, but it's going to be kind of like sweeping up. Like you did a big
Mhm.
home renovation project, you started the project during the pre shadow. Everything was chaos and all over your house in pieces during the retrograde. And now you are sweeping up the final
Mhm.
pieces during the post retrograde shadow. And that ends May 2nd. So we still have some time, but I think for the most part, it should be smoother sailing.
Mhm. Yes, thank goodness. February 25th, Mercury in Pisces will conjunct Saturn in Pisces at 20 degrees.
Oh, this is okay.
Serious.
Oh, yeah. Okay. This is going to bring us back to when Venus formed a conjunction with Saturn,
Mhm.
which I believe was
January 18th.
January 18th. It
Yeah, it
was,
was
yeah.
16 degrees.
So similar topics, themes, storylines
Mhm.
are coming up from that time. This you could be feeling a little down this day. Don't
Mhm.
force yourself to have posy vibes or feel like I got to feel optimistic. No toxic positivity today. Allow yourself to feel your real feelings. Um, Slow down, regulate your nervous system. Don't put pressure on yourself to be productive or whatever society wants you to do. Just allow yourself to be. Conversations can be more serious. You could discuss commitments. You could sign a contract. That would be like the most positive manifestation. But in
Mhm.
general, I think conversations feel a little bit more direct,
Yeah.
tense, to the point.
Mhm. Very like real conversations,
Mhm.
like pulling you into reality, which I don't know how real your conversations can be when they're in Pisces, but I guess the Saturnian influence.
Yes, yes. There could be something about like making a dream come into form in reality.
Hmm. Okay, I like that.
Mhm.
Making contract, like you said, contracts, like really seriously talking about that.
Mhm.
Um, then on February 27th, Mercury in Pisces will sextile Uranus in Taurus at 23 degrees. So it's again like hitting that 23 degrees.
Yeah. I like this. This is
Mhm.
anytime a planet forms a sextile with Uranus, I'm super into it. It is like
Mhm.
gentle and it's like a welcome surprise. People are usually in like fun and flirty moods. A great time to make new friends, put yourself out there, take a risk on social media.
Mhm.
Um, you could learn some surprising but welcome news.
Yes. I mean, there have been so many Uranus and Taurus activations last year. You can also look back at that time. We've spoken about many of them. And this is like Uranus's last kind of moment before July when Uranus moves into Gemini. So Uranus is trying to finish up its story here.
Yes, yes, yes.
February 27th, so same day, there will be a new moon in Pisces.
Yes. And this one's at 9 degrees. It's not an eclipse, but the North Node is in Pisces. It's just not
Mhm.
close enough to the node to be
Mhm.
considered an eclipse. But still, I think it's co present with the North Node. It's co present with Saturn and Mercury and Neptune, all in Pisces. So it
Mhm.
might feel like a bigger new moon,
Yes.
especially if the moon is your time lord, me right now. Um, it is in the first decan of Pisces, which Laura kindly reminded me is associated with the Eight of Cups. Uh,
Stephanie projected her feelings and she put the Nine of Cups, which is a
yeah.
totally different vibe.
It's
Like
the
Nine
complete
of
opposite
Cups
vibe. It's
is like wish fulfillment.
yes, all your dreams are coming true. I was like writing notes for this. I'm like, yes, can't wait for this new moon.
Yeah.
No, wrong.
But the Eight of Cups means leaving something behind. Um, the new moon will square Jupiter, which will finally be direct, and it is the ruler of the moon.
Mhm. That's posy. That's
That's
posy.
positive. Venus is inching toward a trine with Jupiter. So that is positive as well. But it does go retrograde before it completes. Sad face.
Yes. A little sad, right? Like we
A little
almost made
sad.
it. Like when
Yeah.
Venus and Jupiter come together in, you know, a sextile or a trine, it is like some of the highest vibe astrology that you
Such
can
high
think of.
vibes. When
Yeah.
there was that Venus Jupiter trine in December, I texted you the next day and I was like, I'm hungover because I literally was like out in New York City, like, I'm free. I was like having such a good time and I drank way too much. And
Yes.
yeah.
That is the sign of exactly how you should spend a Venus Jupiter trine. So, yeah, this is almost like a dream almost comes through, but since this is the Eight of Cups, there's something you have to address or leave behind. It's like more of a deeper spiritual lesson because I think with the Eight of
Mhm.
Cups, there is that element of like knowing like there's some sort of something is you're not fulfilled
Yeah.
spiritually fully, and you have to move on from a situation, a relationship, or pattern, cycle, something before you're able to have that wish fulfillment. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, but that's an important step on your own personal manifestation journey. So even if it doesn't feel like you've hit it big or reached your goal, you are taking a key and critical step. Reflection, slowing down, purging, letting go are just as important as coming up with your action plans and making
Mhm.
vision boards and like doing the
Yeah.
pop culture quote unquote manifestation stuff. Like all of these like shadowy,
Mhm.
deeper emotions are just as important on your personal co-creation journey. So I digress.
Yeah, I think that's important because Pisces is not just about dreams and imagination and like unity consciousness. There is this kind of like feeling of loss there too, or just like being lost out in sea. Because, if you think about Pisces, it's like mutable water. Like, where is your grounding? And with Saturn, Mercury, Neptune, the North Node, our souls are trying to like integrate some form of Pisces, the themes of Pisces in the archetype of it in our like physical manifestation here on earth. And then this is like the last like moment in Pisces before March when it's all Aries. And like Aries is a cardinal fire sign. It's like taking action. And I don't know, I think like there is a need to let go of so much and to mourn and grieve like all the stuff that we've been through collectively in February so that in March you like actually know what direction to go and action to take.
Yeah, 100%. I think I I follow a lot of like activism accounts and I'm trying to figure out like that's like I feel like that's such a important ongoing conversation is like feeling overwhelmed by everything that's happening and then also figuring out how to transmute that pain, that collective
Mhm.
sadness and into action, right? And that feels like the transition between Pisces and Aries. So if you are
Yes.
feeling especially tender or overwhelmed, it is cosmically aligned. I
Mhm.
mean, and you probably have been feeling that way for months, for years, for decades, maybe even, right? Like this isn't just new. Um, but if you are feeling heightened in some way, we just want to acknowledge that it is cosmically aligned in the symbolism between Pisces and Aries.
Yes. And so this is officially our last aspect or transit of February, and March is going to be like, what is happening? So you want to make sure to take February as like a breather month.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. Oh my gosh. March, all of our lives are going to change. Your life will look
Literally.
different by the end of March. We're
Mm-hmm.
having just a preview to hook you all in. March 30th, Neptune is going to go into Aries for the first time since 1861.
Yeah.
So that's when the Civil War started. We will get into that in our
Mhm.
next episode, but we are entering a new era, and this is going to have all of us in our personal birth charts. Our lives are going to change.
Yeah.
Focuses are going to shift. Decisions will be made. March is the biggest month, one of the biggest months of the astrology for this year.
I feel like it is the biggest month, right? Because it's like it's eclipses. We have an
Right.
eclipse on March 14th and March 29th. We have Venus and Mercury retrograde in Aries, and then we have Neptune entering Aries. So I
Yeah,
feel like all like you said, our lives are going to change.
our lives are definitely going to change in March.
Yes.
So
See you
stay
then.
tuned. Yeah, we'll see you then. Bye. No, we wish you all the best. Please always, we love reading your comments, your feedback. Leave us comments on YouTube or on Spotify, wherever you stream your podcast. We love to hear how this energy manifests for you. And yeah, in our show notes, we're also going to link to some calls to actions for organizations, mutual aid that you can support. And we can't wait to see you next month.
See you next month. Bye.
Bye.